Well, I'm going to be reading from, it never works, Revenant, which is paranormal action adventure set in Ontario. And it's book 2 of the Chronicles of Ray McAndrues. Book 1 is Nuki Kubai. And as you may have guessed, they're named for the antagonist in each book. What's happened up till this point in Revenant is that Ray, who is a modern day wizard who makes his living as a lifeguard, was going for a midnight swim with his on-again, off-again girlfriend, Cathy, who's also a mystic. When he finds his boss laying on the pool deck with a slit wrist. This is about 2 a.m, and there's a heat wave on. And basically, the boss was driven to suicide by some sort of spiritual entity. And that's as much as Ray knows at this point. He's got a little more information by visiting his boss in the hospital and doing a psychic cleansing to get rid of the residual energies, which would cause his boss to attempt suicide again. But he's still not that, still not overly aware of what he's actually facing. So he's going back to the pool, which has been closed as a crime scene, and because of a pump malfunction and the fact that a whole load of blood has been dumped in the water and it has to be shocked and redone. Host of reasons. And he's investigating it. A punch knows no gender. Chapter 3. Oh, by the way, Cathy is a tall, slender redhead who works as an exotic dancer. And Ray's a muscular, dark-haired man. They're both mid-20s. Think of a professional swimmer for Ray. Okay. As I said, chapter 3, a punch knows no gender. Cathy and I entered the pool office, being careful to touch as little as possible. We dressed in dark jeans and black t-shirts. I'd insisted we wear the same sandals we had the night before in case anybody got anal about an investigation. I uncovered the lit candle lantern I'd carried from my apartment building. My code worked for the alarm system. "Do you see anything?" whispered Cathy. I stared at her in the dim light that came from the candle. "Why are you whispering?" This is breaking and entering." She straightened up and stared at the pool. "Technically just entering. I have the key. But if we get caught, I'll be canned for sure." We stepped onto the pool deck and moved to the area where the night before we'd found Carl. We stopped and looked down at in the candle's glow. Well, there was still dried blood on the deck. "They aren't in a hurry to clean up," remarked Cathy. They probably won't reopen. The repairs to the pump are scheduled for the end of the summer, and they're having staffing problems. They'll split up my team, shuffle us around the other pools, and start the work early. "Did you bring the incense?" Cathy held out a small brass burner. I opened the candle lantern's hatch, and lit a wooden taper I brought. A moment later, the incense burnt. I doused the taper in the pool and returned it to my pocket. "Ready?" asked Cathy. As I'm likely to be, we both sat on the floor in front of the incense burner. I focused on the smoke, clearing my mind, and spoke. "By Thoth, god of wizardry and knowledge, I call for our eyes to see true, what was and all mysteries to be revealed. By Nephthys, who sees all in her sacred chalice, I call for our eyes to see true and all mysteries to be revealed, Cathy added. Moments passed as we sat in the dim light, breathing deeply. Shadows danced around us. The chlorine stench obliterated the smell of the incense. The smoke from the incense gathered, coalescing into an ugly cloud of violet, red, mustard yellow, and orange light. Faint lines of dirty color reached from the cloud to Carl's dried blood. The repulsive cloud made my stomach churn, yet there was a sense of loss and pain about it. Sweet Lady Bast, how could anything hurt so much? Whispered Cathy. Don't let it get too close. This is just an echo, but look at it. It was feeding, sucking up the energy from Carl's dying. I held up my hand and tried to get a better read on what I was seeing. The energies retreated. I can't get anything else. It's like it's afraid of me. We have to help whatever left this. It needs to go to the other side. Nothing should suffer like that. Nothing. Cathy sounded distraught with an undertone of anger. It's dangerous, Cath. It almost killed Carl. We'll help it if we can, but clearing it has to come first. My voice was firm. I couldn't let compassion get in the way of stopping a killer. Cathy shook her head. Typical male. If you don't understand it, shoot it. Pardon? I felt her words sting. Cathy could be a little feminazi sometimes, but we'd reached an understanding. She wouldn't treat me like a Neanderthal thug, and I wouldn't act like one. I'm going to open my shields to it. Let it in, see what it needs to find peace. Cathy closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Let me anchor you first. My warning came too late. The ugly light pervading the incense cloud dove into Cathy. I didn't have time to react before she was on her feet. I ducked a roundhouse kick aimed at the side of my head. I was lucky with Cathy's training. I shouldn't have been able to avoid her attack. You sick son of a bitch! Cathy screamed at the top of her lungs, and her aura was full of violet lightning bolts. Roz, Beak, Cath, it's me! I scrambled back, gaining some distance, and my feet, which is the only thing that saved me from several broken ribs, as Cathy's foot brushed the front of my shirt. Cath, let it go! Purge! Ground, damn it! Ground! I was begging as much as one can as they back away from Wildcat, hell-bent on their destruction. Rapist! Murderer! Abuser! Man! I will have my revenge! Cathy kept up her tirade. The only luck I had was she was fighting angry. Her body had the skills that had earned her a brown belt, but her mind wasn't directing them. I gained a bit of space and pointed my hand at her in the symbol of the sacred bowl. By Ra's great light, a kick to the gut pointed out why one does not generally perform a banishing on the fly. I added the force of the next kick that connected with my side to a dive into the deep end of the pool. Sinking to the bottom, I removed my shoes and pants before I surfaced and assumed a reverse and ready position. Cathy prowled back and forth on the deck like an angry leopard. I took a moment to shake off the blows she had landed before I put my plan into action. Hey, woman, you didn't finish the job. Come on, come and get me. You know you want to. Come on. Cathy stared at me from the pool deck. I knew the next line would cost me, but I needed to get her into the water. Come on, you slut. Cathy shrieked and dove at me. I caught her shoulder with my foot, pushed away and dove under. A moment later, I came up behind her. Where are you? Where are you? She screamed. I took my chance. By Khonshu, banisher of demons. By the unhead of Heliopolis. I command you, be gone, O darksome force of hate. White light gathered around my hands. I rushed in and laid them against Cathy's head. The light poured into her. driving the ugly energies out into the water where they dissipated. She gasped and went limp. Using a vice carry, I kept her head about out of the water while using the egg beater kick to bring her to the shallow end. I wanted her in the water in case the vanishing wasn't completely successful. Oh, goddess. Cathy half groaned, but otherwise she was limp. I shifted positions so I could cradle her in my arms. Her eyes fluttered open. Are you okay? So I asked stupid questions. Cathy threw her arms around me. I held her. At that moment, I knew I could hold her forever. Don't let go, she pleaded. It was awful. It just got in. It was so angry. It took over. She pulled a little away and gently touched the place where she kicked my ribs. Now that I wasn't fighting for my life, I hissed. Gentle, that one's going to leave a mark. I'm sorry, are you hurt badly? There was a pleading note to Cathy's voice. It'll heal. At least you know I was right about something. I smiled at her. She needed to know that I still cared. What's that? Aquatic defense beats karate in the pool. Cathy snorted, then frowned and held me again. Lady Bastray, there was so much hate, so much rage, but so much pain with it. Why did hate me? Cathy pushed away and placed her hand on my shoulders, stood on the pool bottom. She didn't take her hands away when she was done. Not you, Ray. All men, everything male. It wants revenge for something. It's gone now. I smiled at her and moved her wet hair away from her eyes. Only the residual it left here. It splintered when it had to pull away from Carl while he was still alive. The main part is still out there. All that pain, all that rage, it's going to kill again. I kissed her. It seemed like the right thing to do. I'll stop it. It's what I'm good at. Cathy rolled her eyes. You read too many Jim Butcher books. Seriously, if a splinter could do that to me, I'm scared what the whole thing could do. You opened yourself up to it without waiting for me to anchor you. If your shields were up, it never would have gotten in. I comforted. Cathy shook her head. Stupid beginner's mistake. From now on, I'll let you hold the rope when I jump off a cliff. I think it was having an effect before I opened to it. I didn't let you help me because I didn't trust you. I noticed. I pushed down on a surge of pain. The trust line had teeth. Ray, Cathy kissed me and made it better. I'm okay. Good. There's one other thing. What? Cathy grabbed my hair and pulled it just hard enough to hurt. Don't ever call me a slut. You know I hate that word. She let go of my hair and kissed me hard. Now get your pants and shoes so we can get out. I want to reward the hero of the hour. Sounds good. I smiled and watched a wet Cathy clamber from the pool. Some things you just have to appreciate. I did remember to sop up some of Carl's blood with the face cloth I brought in my pocket before I left. I doubted the smear in the dried blood puddle would attract attention. Thunderbolts and Lightning, Chapter 4. An hour or so later, I lay on my double bed with only the dim light from my window to see by. Light flashed, revealing my dresser and the Egyptian art prints covering the walls. A peal of thunder shook the room. An Egyptian cat statue the size of a very large house cat sat on the dresser top, staring at me with its amethyst eyes. Wind whipped through the window, hot and humid, but with the first promise of cooler air. Cathy padded back from the bathroom and slipped in beside me. It was still too hot to cuddle, but she lay on her side and rested her hand on my chest. I didn't have the heart to tell her that she was touching where she'd almost broken my ribs, and it hurt. Want to ride the storm? She asked. You'll have to give me an hour to recover, Hurricane Cathy. I grinned at her. Getting old. Her fingers traced patterns on my skin. The downside of being male. Wouldn't have you any other way. Besides, that's not the storm I was referring to. You up to it? You've had a rough night. I'd intended to after you fell asleep. Try to keep up. She kissed me and then settled on her back. With her hand moved, my bruised ribs settled down. Some people will tell you that riding a storm is a good way to get hit by lightning. But honestly, in my apartment with lightning rods on the roof, I wasn't too concerned that the energy line connecting my body to my ethereal form would be the path of least resistance. I breathed deeply, envisioning myself floating outside the window. Not as myself, but as energy, consciousness. I felt the storm envelop me. Power coursed around me. Water hurtled towards the ground. I laughed as the acceleration of nature's might made me giddy. I looked to my right and saw a glowing sphere of purple, blue, green, and orange energy. It was crystalline. Little flecks marred its perfection, but in its totality, it was breathtakingly beautiful. Lightning flashed across the sky and Thor threw his hammer. Energies that caused and were formed by 1,000 human ills fled or were sucked up into the torrent. The Chinese believe that lightning is the god's way of disposing of vampires. In Norse mythology, it was Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, striking the frost giants. This wasn't the sandstorm of the Sahara my spiritual path threaded. This storm was cleansing. It was life, raw and all-encompassing. Whether I named the force Horus or Thor is of little import. Energy is energy. The names were applied by humans so we could conceptualize something greater than our minds could wrap themselves around. Call someone William, Will, Bill, or Billy. They can all be the same guy. Different cultures just have different business cards for the cosmic forces. That's why a wizard priest can affect spiritual forces outside their own stream of faith. In the end, you are dealing with something that transcends and underlies all cultural differences. The trick is always to pick the right underlying force for your desired effect. Riding the storm, I laughed, though there was no sound, allowing the vortex of power to suck me up and then careening down with the rain. I looked to my right. Cathy's form raced beside me. We moved close together and touched, our energies mingling. The storm joined in, its energies flooding through us. It was a perfect menage a trois. There was only power as the lines of self vanished. After a few more seconds, it was too much. Humans can only touch the Godhead for so long before the sheer glory of it will burn us out. I careened away, laughing and dancing with the winds. Was I Ray or was I Cathy, or something larger than both? In time, my nature would reassert itself, but for the moment, the definitions of self fell away. I was neither and both, man and woman. I was neither and both, human and God. Wonder took me as I played like a dolphin in the sea. This is magic, not the useful tricks. They are the trappings that come with as a side effect of training and practice. The ability to, the privilege of, touching the life all around, to simply be in and of the world. That is what the path of the mystic is about. Being the storm, being the beloved, simply being. The mystic who doesn't take the time to do this has missed the point. I looked down at the earth. The ethereal is an intermediate state between the astral plane and the physical manifestation. It connects them, allowing communication between the two. Not so much a plane itself as a state of flux between two planes. When I looked down, I saw the glowing lines of force that crisscrossed the city and stretched out beyond the escarpment. Beyond the escarpment, with its living forest, formed a band of green and brown light. A sense intruded from my physical form, and I swept towards it. The sensation became clearer. I saw the wards around my apartment and slipped past them. I laid beside Cathy, or did I lay beside Ray? I noticed that Cathy's form held her ethereal nature and surmised I was Ray. Either way, I reached out along the golden thread that connected me to my body and made myself swallow, clearing my airway. That brief contact pushed a mortal thought into my energy form. When you're ethereal or astral, a thought is all it takes. Immediately, my ethereal form floated inside my temple room. The bloody face cloth sat on the altar. Tendrils of energy, some glowing dimly and fading fast, others dark and menacing, came out of the bloody cloth. I ignored the ones that glowed, knowing they represented the fading connection to Carl, and thoroughly touched the dark tendril. I released the psychic equivalent of a gasp. My temple room vanished. I floated in the corner of a bar I'd never been in. It was clean enough, with bad lighting. I could sense the storm outside. Various minor spirits hovered around the room on the astral and ethereal levels. When I arrived, they found a reason to be elsewhere. Spiritual tapeworms looking for a host who were just smart enough not to mess when a wizard showed up unexpectedly. On the physical level, the black vinyl covering the chairs was cracked, and there was a general air of decrepitude and desperation. A chubby, middle-aged, balding man sat at the bar. Another stood behind it, wearing an apron, looking tired and bored. "Bottoms up, Will. I want to knock off." The bartender started to put the chairs on the table. "They're all bitches, you know," slurred the man seated at the bar. "My ex-wife, my bloody boss, my girlfriend, they're all out to cut them off just like a dog. Sometimes I think I should do the job for them. Then they couldn't kick me around." The bartender sighed. Yeah. They're an alien species. We could never figure them out in a million years. I'm calling you a cab." As I watched, dark energy slid into the bar. I huddled back and made myself small. Whatever this thing was, it was to the spiritual tapeworms that ran from me what a T-Rex would be to a sparrow, a small house sparrow. Only once had I faced something more powerful, and then I'd barely escaped with all the help I could muster. The energy drifted towards Will and seemed to enfold him. His aura, already weakened by the alcohol, collapsed. The energy invaded him. As I kept observing, the entity seemed to boil with ethereal power. I could see lines connecting it to earthly sources. A glowing thread of violet and red energy ascended into the astral. I followed that thread, elevating my vibration onto the astral level. The astral is shaped by thought and reflects concepts and metaphor. I saw the line of red and violet energies entering a balloon-like bubble of hardened astral force, as black as ink. I reached into that bubble with my emotions and felt the energies of rage and obsession inside it. It was as close to pure hate as I'd ever seen. I heard whimpering coming from the bubble. Focusing my will, I projected joy against the hate and madness. At the same time, I allowed my perceptions to penetrate the black shell. The astral form of the teenage girl appeared out of a fog of red and violet energies. Her energy nearly matched the environment around her. I'd have mistaken her for an energy construct, except there was a tracery of blue, brown, and flecks of gold that distinguished her from the background forces. She was definitely an astral spirit, imprisoned in a pocket of hellish energies with nothing but hate to feed on. "Go away!" screeched the astral girl, and then in a whisper, "Help me. I don't want to." "I'm here to help. Let's get you out of here." No sooner had I spoken than the flow of red and violet from the ethereal level increased, forming heavy chains that bound the girl. A headless swan flew in circles around us, making the bird song flute sound. The girl looked up and screamed, Go away! The headless swan attacked me, its wings pummeling me, tossing me away from the girl and beyond the black shell of the bubble. I almost slammed back into my body. What if, except instead of fighting the attack, I rode it back to the ethereal level, where I found myself in the bar. Of course I can give you a ride, sweetness. Anywhere you want to go. What's your name? Will still sat at the bar as the ethereal energies about him pulsed. Marianne, pretty name for a pretty girl. Will stood up and held out his hand, nothing physical, before staggering to the bar's exit. Wait for the cab, called the bartender. I collected myself, grounded the rage energy from the astral attack that followed Will. I was nearly off my storm high. Thinking logically became easier. The downside was, as I became more attached to the physical, it became harder to stay in my ethereal form. It is always a trade-off when you travel in a spirit form. Will made his way to a beat-up old car and stops, seeming to caress the air. Judging from how his hands moved, I'd say his mental image of Marianne had a more than ample figure. You're a little haughty. Let's go, and you can prove you're a natural blonde. Will fumbled his keys. I did something distasteful. I tried entering Will, pushing my energies into him in a bid to displace the ethereal thing that was casting the illusion he was experiencing. I saw what Will saw, a beautiful blonde 20-ish woman, whose head came up to the bottom of Will's chin. She had a body that looked like it had been designed by a frustrated teenage boy with a blimp fixation. She stood beside him, running her hands over his chest, cooing nonsensically. A moment later, there was a growling sound. It felt like a massive paw swatted me away from Will. It wasn't an attack unless a splinter considered being pulled out an attack. As I left, I managed to get his hand to spasm so that he dropped his keys. I floated outside Will's car as he scrambled on the pavement with rain bucketing down on him. The rain served me. I allowed it to wash away the negative energies I'd found in Will. The predator took no further notice of me. Several of the lines that ran from the ethereal formed to someplace on the earth plane pulsed with power. From the lack of a follow-up attack, I supposed that it wasn't structured to do more than displace things that came between it and its prey. I tried to re-enter Will, but was repulsed by the entity. Drifting back, I gathered my focus. By Khonshu, banisher of demons, by Lady Sekhmet, warrior goddess, I command thee return to thy proper plane and place. Marianne ignored me. There was a great deal of earth plane energy in the thing. If I'd been in my body, I'd have sighed with resignation. There was a home court advantage in a spell fight. If you belong on the plane of existence you're on, the natural energies of that level of existence will aid you. I didn't have that advantage against this nasty. With ties to the physical world, I couldn't banish it because it belonged here. This was something new to me. I hate it when the ghosties and ghoulies get clever. Will found his keys and made great show of opening and closing the passenger side door before clambering behind the wheel. To anyone watching without the sight, opening the passenger side door would have appeared nonsensical. He kissed the air beside him and groped somewhat lower. Clearing my mind, I moved behind Will. Passing through the car's metal was unpleasant and grounded more of my ethereal energy. I found that I had taken on a roughly human appearance. Thus far, my form was asexual, but that wasn't going to last. It was also a sign that I'd been drawn back to my physical form soon. I tried to touch Will, but was blocked by a shell of energy. I tried going to the astral vibration to try and reach Will's mind via his spiritual nature. Will's spirit was panicked, but it couldn't make itself felt through the ethereal static. Marianne generated as well as the flood of alcohol. I could sense the prison encapsulating Marianne's astral level like a black bubble on a tether of red and violet, tying it to the ethereal energies. When I tried to approach the bubble, the headless swan appeared, driving me back. I returned to the ethereal level in the back of Will's car. Will started the car. In seconds, he was barreling down the street. He careened towards a bus stop's rain shelter with shadowy figures within it. Desperate, I focused all my power and slammed into the glass of the driver's side door. There was a ka-thunk sound. Will jerked around to look for the noise, pulling the wheel. The car jumped the curb, missing the bus shelter and its occupants. Will pulled onto the street before returning his attention to the invisible distraction in his passenger seat. In minutes, we were on Highway 403, careening along at nearly twice the limit, with rain pummeling down and a drunk driver who thought he had a woman half his age and twice his class doing things you shouldn't do when you are driving in the first place. I kept trying to break through to him, but couldn't. The temperature dropped. I could hear Marianne's voice. It was harsh, cruel, venomous. You let them all down. Your kids hate you because you're a loser. Your father thought you were a joke. That's why he sent you to boarding school. The older boys knew you were really a girl. They treated you right. You're nothing. No woman stays with you because you aren't worth staying with. You abuse everyone. You supported Afghanistan. No woman would support a war. You're a killer, a monster. Your boss knows how useless you are. She's better than you'll ever be. Any woman is better than you'll ever be, you drunk. The world is better off without you. I couldn't stop it, and now the energy had noticed me. My ethereal body had almost mimicked my physical form. A sense of anger and hostility permeated the entity, but also hunger. It was about to feed. At least I knew how it became so powerful, on the ethereal. But who anchored it? I was about to follow the energy trails that led from it, when Will floored the gas. The old car shook and rattled. You know what you have to do, spat Marianne's voice. The car shot off the road over the ditch towards a tree. I let my ethereal form return to my body. There was nothing I could do, and I had a feeling that I would be next on the menu if I stayed. I slammed back into my body. Cathy was gone. She didn't like sleeping at my place. Safe. My apartment's wards would keep the entity from following me. But alone, to face my failure. I knew that the next day's news would report a story about a drunk driving fatality on the 403. I told myself that I did all I could. I tried not to think of my greatest failure, and failed at that. At times like these, my thoughts inevitably strayed to a brave man, his hair almost gray, with a powerful body carrying a few extra pounds, battling a beast of nightmare. I tried not to remember a final desperate spell by that champion. I tried not to remember a final desperate spell by that champion, a spell that saved me. I tried not to think of the casket where they displayed my grandfather's corpse, supposedly felled by a stroke. I tried not to remember that other time I did all I could, and it wasn't enough. I told myself I was only 12, just a kid. My father should have been there, but it didn't help. It never did. The only thing that helped was the rage, the driving determination that it wouldn't happen again, a simple resolve that I would stand and somehow keep it from happening again. Victory brought peace. I knew at that moment I was on the hunt. With that realization, exhaustion coupled with the cooler air allowed me to sleep. And I'm going to leave it there because my throat's going. I hope you enjoyed it. And That's Revenant. It's through Dark Dragon Publishing, so it's not at the con this year, but I have the links for purchase in the chat. And if you put in Stephen B. Pearl on Amazon, I pop up. So it's easy to find me. Okay, well, you guys have a good night, and hopefully I'll see you at some of the Brain Lag stream tomorrow. Bye-bye.